If there's one thing the world agrees on, it's that Germany builds some of the most refined and precise machines ever to grace a racetrack. And if you plan to compete on their home turf, whether at the legendary Hockenheimring or the fearsome Nürburgring, you'd better arrive in something crafted by the geniuses at AMG or BMW's M division. That's just common sense. But then again, where's the fun in following the rules? Ever since the rise of the Deutsche Tourenwagen Meisterschaft, Germany's elite touring car championship, there have been rare moments when the predictable order of racing was shaken up by true outliers. Cars and drivers that had no business being there, yet refused to back down. Among these misfits, one story stands out. A machine so out of place that it almost felt like an apparition among the finely tuned German beasts. If you were staring at the iconic Mercedes 190e Evo 2 or the BMW E30 M3, you might have missed it entirely, but you definitely would have heard it. It was a raw, thunderous sound, the growl of a privateer's dream. A man without factory support, without the luxury of a massive racing budget, but with something far more dangerous: determination. His weapon of choice? A Fox Body Ford Mustang, the most powerful car that DTM had ever seen. Against all odds, this American brute with its ancient suspension design and solid rear axle went toe-to-toe with Europe's finest. What it lacked in sophistication, it made up for in pure, unfiltered small block muscle. And despite the odds, it became one of the longest-running names in DTM history. This forgotten story begins with a simple vision, a dream of building one car that could conquer every market. In the early 1970s, Ford imagined a global vehicle platform, one design that could be adapted into sedans, wagons, and sports coupes for every corner of the world. They called it Project Fox. The idea sounded brilliant on paper, one chassis for all. But in practice, it was expensive, demanding, and incredibly ambitious. Meeting different countries' safety and emission standards while keeping costs down proved nearly impossible. Eventually, Ford scaled it back to focus only on North America. Development of the Fox-based sports coupe began in 1975, with design teams in both Dearborn, Michigan and Ghia Studios in Italy competing to create Ford's next big hit. The winning concept was sleek, aerodynamic, and modern enough to convince Lee Iacocca himself that this was the proper successor to the controversial Mustang II. And so, in 1979, the Fox Body Mustang was born. Buyers could choose from a range of engines: the humble 2.3-liter inline-4 for fuel economy, a turbocharged version of that same engine for a little more punch, a 2.8-liter Cologne V6, a 3.3-liter straight-six, or the beloved 5.0-liter V8, the 302 Windsor. That V8 shared its bloodline with legends like the Boss 302, using the same 4-inch bore and 3-inch stroke, but the production version was tamed: smaller valves, a 2-barrel carburetor, and less aggressive heads. Compared to the Chevy Camaro's small blocks, it was underpowered, but what it lacked in brute output, it made up for with balance, a lightweight frame, and a rear suspension ready to put the power down. Despite its humble beginnings, the Fox Body Mustang quickly became a fan favorite. It wasn't long before it was homologated for Group A racing, an FIA category requiring at least 5,000 street cars to qualify. The European circuits, however, weren't designed for a 5.0-liter American muscle car. Heavy by their standards and a bit crude in design, the Mustang faced an uphill battle against precision machines like the Volvo 240 and BMW 635 CSI. Yet, when the 1984 German Production Car Championship began, the Mustang stunned everyone by showing real potential. A German privateer named Rudin Ringenhausen, through his ties with Ford, managed to acquire a Fox Body and turn it into a racing weapon. The engine, built by none other than Jack Roush, was a masterpiece. A high-compression 302 with Boss cylinder heads, a single-plane intake, and a 4-barrel carburetor producing around 320 horsepower. It screamed to 7,000 RPM, a ferocious sound that turned heads every time it hit the track. Driven by Manfred Trent, the Mustang earned multiple wins and finished 6th overall in the championship, an impressive feat for a car never even sold in Europe. Across the world in Australia, racing legend Dick Johnson took the Fox Body even further. His Mustang dominated the 1985 Australian Touring Car Championship, finishing second overall and securing podiums in 9 of 10 races. Johnson later described it as one of the best handling and braking cars he'd ever driven. A shocking compliment for a vehicle often dismissed as too crude for serious motorsport. But just as the Mustang began to find its stride, the winds of change arrived. Turbocharging, that magical technology that made small engines punch above their weight, suddenly swept through the racing world. Naturally aspirated giants like the Fox were suddenly outclassed. The Mustang's thunderous V8, once its greatest strength, was now considered old-fashioned. But even as time and technology moved on, the legend of that lone Mustang on German soil remains. It was proof that passion, ingenuity, and a bit of rebellion could challenge the status quo, even in a world dominated by German precision. A good therapist doesn't just listen. They help you see your challenges from a new perspective, asking the right questions and guiding you toward understanding yourself better. That's exactly what platforms like BetterHelp aim to do, make therapy easier and more accessible for everyone. With a quick questionnaire, you can be matched with a licensed therapist in just a few days. The service has earned thousands of positive reviews and an impressive rating on Trustpilot, showing that it's a platform people genuinely trust. You can get started today by visiting betterhelp.com/337speed for 10% off your first month. Remember, change can be difficult, but you never have to face it alone. Now, back to the machines. The world of racing was about to change forever, and the reason was simple: turbocharging. The new king of motorsport had arrived, and it didn't need massive displacement to dominate. One of the first to prove this was the Volvo 240 Turbo, a boxy, unassuming car that earned the nickname the Flying Brick. It shocked everyone when it crushed the competition in the 1985 German Production Car Championship, defeating much larger and more powerful naturally aspirated engines. Under its hood was the B21 ET, a 2.1-liter turbocharged engine running 1.5 bar of boost and producing around 320 horsepower. The math was simple. A smaller, boosted engine meant less weight, better handling, and more efficiency on tight European circuits. Ford of Europe quickly took notice, and the result was the Sierra Cosworth, a turbocharged monster that would carry Ford's flag in touring car battles across Europe. The Sierra was everything the old Fox Body Mustang wasn't. It was lighter, featured independent rear suspension, and most importantly, had full factory backing from Ford. That support made all the difference, not only in racing, but in marketing, since the Sierra was actually sold in Europe and Australia. Racing wins translated into car sales. Even Dick Johnson, the Australian racing legend who once swore by his Mustang, made the switch to the Sierra in 1987. The Fox Body simply couldn't keep up anymore, especially against advanced turbo cars like the Nissan Skyline R30. Despite the Mustang's raw power and thrilling character, its age was showing. While Ford did experiment with a turbo version, the Mustang SVO, powered by a 2.3-liter turbo four-cylinder that could reach insane power figures in IMSA racing, it was never homologated for Group A. That meant the old 5.0-liter V8 remained its only option, and by the late 80s, it was outmatched. By 1988, the Fox Body was a relic, outdated, overpowered in the wrong ways, and unable to compete with the increasingly sophisticated European machinery. But just when it seemed destined for the history books, an unexpected figure reignited its flame. That man was Rainer Gurek, a Berlin-based businessman in the plumbing and heating industry, and a passionate motorsport enthusiast. Lacking big sponsorship deals or manufacturer backing, Gurek relied on creativity and determination. He bought Manfred Trent's back at Mustang, an aging Fox Body, and decided to build it into a proper DTM contender. While elite BMW teams like Schnitzer, Linder, and Bugatti were spending 80,000 Deutschmarks on 2.3-liter engines making around 330 horsepower, Gurek looked west, to America. For roughly $15,000 USD, he could get fully built 5.0-liter Windsor V8s cranking out over 520 horsepower. Where others spent fortunes on advanced ECUs, Gurek stuck with a simple 4-barrel carburetor costing barely 1,200 Deutschmarks. Between 1988 and 1994, his Mustang became a legend, not because it was the fastest, but because it was different. It was the most powerful car to ever race in DTM and by far the cheapest. The The Fox Body's rumbling V8, its flaming exhausts, and that unmistakable rear light signature turned it into a crowd favorite. Fans adored it for its defiance, a symbol of old-school muscle fighting in a world ruled by high-tech engineering. Despite its brute power, it couldn't quite keep pace with the nimble German machines in the corners. Yet in 1992, perseverance paid off. Gehrich's Mustang scored a 10th place finish at the Hockenheim Ring, followed by another 10th at the Norris Ring a year later. It might not have stood on the podium, but its thunderous soundtrack and underdog spirit made it unforgettable. By 1995, Gehrig finally retired the Mustang, trading it for a DTM spec Mercedes C-Class, a more competitive but far less dramatic machine. Fans missed the fire-breathing American, but its legacy was already secured. From its debut in 1984 to its final run in 1994, the Fox Body Mustang remained a constant presence in the DTM grid, outlasting legends like the BMW E30 M3 and Mercedes 190E. Produced from 1979 to 1993, the Fox Body Mustang represented an era, a car that evolved through countless trims, power upgrades, and limited editions. It might not have conquered every race, but it proved one undeniable truth. The Mustang spirit was, and always will be, about versatility, attitude, and heart. It was the American rebel that dared to challenge Europe's best. And for that, it will forever be remembered as one of racing's most forgotten legends. Don't forget to subscribe to the Garage Legends for more stories about the cars that changed history, but were almost lost to time.